Today, I had an uncle here called Raskin, and he tells over how he once had a call from the Rebbetzin, so Yartzeit is celebrating tonight. She said that by farbrengs, she wanted to, but basically she's asking that by the farbrengs they should talk about stuff which needs to be discussed. I'm not sure how she knew what was going on by farbrengs, but that was her encouragement to him. That by farbrengs should be discussed. What needs to be farbrengs about. That's as much detail as I got. So first of all, time. I don't know what your style of your farbrengs are used to. I'm going to just tell you first of all a story. Well, it's quite interesting that you ask Rabbonim to farbrengs. Rabbonim there is to pass and shilas. Mashpikim is meant to, you got oiras and kalim. So, you got the inspiration and the dampeners. So the mashpia were meant to be the inspiration. The Rabbonim say you can't do this, etc. They're the dampeners. So for bringing it makes more sense to get mashpia than to get Rabbonim. So I'll tell you a story. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. And we made a chasana, a son of married in Detroit. Shortly before that, there's a couple who have moved out and access to Iceland, to Reykjavik. And they had been in touch with me about questions which are unique to have been such a northern place. The times for Shabbos, times for Shema. It works out that to say Shema on time, you have to get up for 2 months of the year at least. About, have to be up to 1:30 a.m. to be able to be able to Shema. Okay. Some people handle that pretty well. But it was quite challenging. But one of the things which they asked me, not to do with the times, but but also in Iceland there are many volcanoes, and there are mikvahs, outdoor pools, and they sent me photographs. It looks like a mikvah. The steps going down, oblong shape, but it happens to be surrounded with grass. It's like outdoor pools, are naturally hot, warmed from the volcanic heat. So they're asking whether these mikvahs are kosher. So my initial reaction, if the water's come in naturally, so there's no buckets, no pipes, whatever. So I felt it was okay, but I was still intrigued to see I wanted to see them in the real. So when I made my tickets from London to New York, to Detroit back to London, I made this on a stopover in Reykjavik. But actually my stopover was only for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it was around this time of the year, and the shluchim weren't in town, they were here in New York. They usually geholfen that we had a 3-hour delay in Detroit because of extremely cold weather and a flood in the airport. And as a result, by the time our aircraft left from Detroit to Iceland, to Reykjavik, by the time we arrived in Reykjavik, the connection to London had gone on its way. So we were now stuck in Iceland for another 12 hours, unexpected. Okay. One of the nice things about Iceland is, especially for Bochum, you can't daven shachris before 10 o'clock, it's still dark. So we daven shachris in good time, and then we went outside, and I had my wish is fulfilled. I will be able to go and see these outdoor mikvahs. So I had my laptop with me, and I find the taxi driver, and I opened up the picture of this thing, and I said, I wanted one of these. Okay, come along. I'm warning you, it cost us about $150 for an hour or something like that. So, okay, perhaps more. We had a fascinating experience. I didn't see the mikvah, but after about half an hour, people now drive, going through blocks of lava, and because they don't need to heat their houses with boilers because they have piped warmth from the volcanic area, about miles of piping. And finally the driver stops at a place, and we get off, and there's a cloud of steam coming out of the floor. And there's a bridgeway around it, wooden bridge, and of course there's signs there which say do not step off the bridge because the ground is could be dangerous. And of course I stepped off the bridge to check it out, and we were right there. There's a cloud of steam coming out from the ground. This was like a surreal experience. And after because now whatever we got back into the car, went back to the airport, and went back to London. And I arrived in London, let's say 12 on Monday, on Thursday. Friday night I come to show. And between Mincha and Maghrib, people are learning, and this is Parshas Mishpatim. And I can hear the learning around the table, the learning about Moshe Rabbeinu coming up to Har Sinai, and there's a smoke, and there's a cloud, and Hashem makes a path for Moshe to walk through the cloud. And I was in the clouds a little bit myself, and so this was like very relevant to me. I've just been next to a cloud, and it's still by the way, it's still furry, so it's got a horrible smell, and that clung to my clothes. But I'm under this impression of being next to the cloud, and then I'm hearing a Sikha Maimer about Moshe Rabbeinu going through the cloud. Hashem makes a path. It took me time to learn it's a mimer from Topshin Kope. Then I realized actually that this mimer is, I recognize it from somewhere. The same topic is discussed in the Sikhes. You're familiar with the difference between a mimer and a sikha, yeah? This is in the Sikhes, which I remember. Then it comes to mind more so that actually I was sent by the Rebbe as a bocher, as one of 6 bocherim, to go to Australia. So if my accent sounds a little bit off the, English, because I was contaminated with it. A wonderful 2 years in this country. So the way it worked out, the way they say there was at that time, the day that we departed, that Rebbe made a surprise for bringing on Sunday afternoon. It was very, very unusual that Rebbe should make a farbrengs on the Sunday afternoon. And in retrospect, I understand that this was because of the shluchim who were going to Australia. And before that, we went to outside the Rebbe's room, and the 6 of us, plus the parents of I was the only one who was not from the United States, and so all their parents were there. My Zeda was showing, he was also there, and the Rebbe gave a bracha. He thanked the parents for bringing up such children. So my parents weren't there, so I can't take it. But then the Rebbe gave each one of us a few things. This was just after Yitzchok, when we were celebrating 30 years of Rebbe's leadership. And so then that was 30, we've done 30. So the Rebbe gave us each 30 Australian dollars, 30 shkolim, because we were stopping over in Israel on the way there. He also gave us 3 American dollars, the Sikhes volume 15, which had just been published. And this was this time of the year. So, you know the Sikhes. The Sikhes used to come out in pamphlets on a weekly basis. So, this was a Sunday of Parshas Truma, and yesterday was Shabbos Mishpatim. And this actual sikha which I'm talking about Moshe Rabbeinu going through the cloud, etc., was the Rebbe gave us in a pamphlet form. So he gave us dollars, shkolim, a volume of the Sikhs, a volume Tesvov, and a pamphlet of Parshas Mishpatim Sikha, which had just been published. And that's in that Sikha that Rebbe talks about the following. This Moshe Rabbeinu going through the cloud. Now, in that Sikha, that's really what I wanted to share with you, which I find very relevant to myself. And that is, before Matan Torah, which is in this week's Parsha, you've done your Chumash today, it says something to the effect that Vahar Sinai Oshan Kulai. Is that today's Parsha? Or was it yesterday's? That there's the whole of the mountain.
Well, that's it tomorrow. It was Thursday.
And what day are we today?
Depends if... It's still Thursday, it's not...
Okay, alright, so that's what I meant. Usually you learn Chumash by day.
Today.
So, Vahar Sinai Oshan Kulai. Now, that is in today's Parsha, and Shishi has got the 10 Commandments, the Sarah's Hadar. And then, we've got Parshas Mishpatim. And then the end of the Parshas Mishpatim is a kind of a... it looks like Moshe Rabbeinu is going up to Har Sinai, and so that Moshe Rabbeinu could not, or Lo Yochel Moshe La'alois L'Har Sinai, Mipnei Asher Yorod Olav Hashem Ba'esh, Vayal
Yes.
Huh?
Shvi or Shvi?
The end of Shvi. Yeah, Lo Yochel Moshe. No, that's today's Parsha. There it's a different lashon. At any rate, what is the difference between the smoke which is mentioned in today's Parsha and smoke the end of Parshas Mishpatim? There it says, Vahar Sinai Oshan Kulai. The entire mountain was filled with smoke. And the end of Parshas Mishpatim, it's okay, you can take it over, it's okay. Yeah. at the end of Parshas Mishpatim, it talks about also that Moshe couldn't approach because of the fire. And the Rebbe asks in his style many questions. And basically the answer is, there's a difference. That's Parshas Mishpatim. You have?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, that's not going to help us with the Chumash which we need today. No, not to worry. You know there's a difference between this smoke coming from a burning tire and smoke coming from burning leaves.
Yeah.
Because the more coarse the material is, the thicker the smoke is going to be. So in this week's Sefer, it says that Vahar Sinai Oshan Kulai, the entire fire, the entire mountain was filled with smoke.
Wow.
And the reason being, before Matan Torah, before the giving of the Torah was the world was a more coarse matter, and consequently the smoke is a Oshan Kulei, the whole thing is filled with smoke. The end of Parashas Mishpatim, still finding a place? Okay. Alright. There we go. Okay. It says, possibly 4. Vayal Moshe el Hadar, Vaychasa Olon es Hadar. And it says it's like a fire. Right, at any rate, so here we have, it talks about a fire. And the Rebbe explains, based upon earlier sources of Chassidus, that before Matan Torah the world was more coarse, and therefore there is a thick smoke. And here, in this parsha, the end of Parshas Mishpatim is after Matan Torah. So there is a smoke. And then Rashi says, and this is very important words, Onon ze kemin oshon hoya. The cloud of smoke is kemin oshon, is a type of smoke. Again, talk about a cloud, and Rashi says the cloud was smoke. But it's a kind of smoke. A kind of smoke, and perhaps a kinder smoke, a less intense smoke. And then he says, Hashem makes a path for Moshe in this smoke. Is that the end of the Rashi? And the way the Rebbe explains is the following. After Matan Torah, the world is not such a coarse place. The smoke is there, but it's like a cloud. It's a milder. And then the Rebbe says, a person could say, why should I get involved with this world? Let me just stay in isolation. I'll just do my own avodah and not get involved with the world. So then we say, no. Matan Torah says Moshe has to go through the... And then Moshe says, but I'm going to get dirty. I'm going to get soiled. So Rashi tells us that this Baruch Hu makes me in a path. Rashi explains that farbrengs. Sometimes people ask about brushing your teeth on Shabbos. In Hayom Yoim, it says that before saying brachas in the morning, it's important to rinse your mouth. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. Besides
the fast day. That's in the Hayom. The background for that. Now you have Hayom Yoims which have got notes. So the background of that was there was a bocher who had should we say, a hygiene problem or a medical problem, but he had very foul breath.
Sounds like a life.
And it was extreme to the point that people said he needs to have attention. And he was saying, Chassidus bocher has to be higher than this kind of stuff, and so he refused to have it, to deal with it. And so the Frierdiker Rebbe was, at that time, was the Menayel, and the Rebbe Rashab was the Rebbe. And was the discussion, what do we do about this boy who refuses to worry about it, to deal with his hygiene? And so he was told, if you're not going to deal with it, you won't be able to stay in the yeshiva. Wow. And that's the background of this Hayom Yom. It's it's how do you say, diluted, so to speak. It's brought down. And coming back, you can check this up in the Sikha, when the Rebbe spoke about what I'm telling you, about the Moshe coming. So Moshe Rabbeinu, he was concerned, he's going to receive the Torah. He's going for the 40 days to receive the Torah. This is after Matan Torah, yeah? We're not talking about before. After Matan Torah, Moshe goes up for 40 days. He doesn't want to come up, smelling like, coming through with all that smoke. And the Rebbe mentioned there, like this Indian of rinsing your mouth before saying brachas, and also brushing your teeth. And you should, the importance of brushing your teeth every day, except for Shabbos. So in case someone asks whether you should brush your teeth on Shabbos or not, so you have here, it's a it's not a Mugadik Sikha, but in this Parshas Mishpotim Tov Shin Chov Hei, there is this note of brushing your teeth, but not on Shabbos. So Moshe Rabbeinu is concerned about his personal hygiene. He doesn't want to get sullied, doesn't want to get dirty by engaging with Elam Hazeh. He also HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe Shekhiv B'Sefet. Hashem make the path. And the point which the Rebbe is saying is that by following the path of Moshe, you can engage with Elam Hazeh and not get yourself dirty. That's the message. So coming back to sum up what I just said, I know I gave you a whole story of Reykjavik and the mikvahs, etc. But the point which I wanted to bring out is, to me, that I kind of looked over that sikh a few times since. This is the message that Rebbe is saying. To say that you're going to isolate from Elam Hazeh, that's not the derech. You need to engage in Elam Hazeh. You have to engage in, and Elam Hazeh is not such a frightening place. It looks like smoke. It's a cloud, it's smoke, whatever. It's milder than you think, but you can still get dirty. But if you are going in the path of Moshe, and you're able to get through that smoke without getting, sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah.
When he said that Hashem made a shvil b'tochom is for him, so that's like Torah mitzvahs, right? He was like in the cloud, but he made a shvil for him, so it was like he could be in the world and he could still be like ruchnius.
Yes.
Okay, fine. So you're saying
Something on those lines.
it's like he comforted him. Moshe.
Yes, and he reassured him that it's not a stealing. You can engage in Elam Hazeh,
Yeah.
and that it's not imperative that you become a rabbi.
It's not a contradiction.
Yeah.
To learn from Hashem.
So what are some life hacks on this? But it's more some like, what is it? Directives, some advice.
Okay. Let's say Sandy, and then we'll.
Okay.
Oh, yo, 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 yo. when I was living in Kfar Chabad, so I had an uncle who lived there. He says to me, "You want to see a Chassidish Yid? Look at Reb Simcha Gardetsky." So Reb Simcha was elderly man at the time. In my uncle's eyes, this was a tzir of a Chassidish Yid. So I'm going to tell you a story of Reb Simcha Gardetsky. You know the name Gardetsky, perhaps? There are two brothers. One was Reb Binyamin Gardetsky, who was a well-known activist, organizer, etc. And Reb Simcha was a different character totally. And Reb Simcha, as a bocher, he was in yeshiva, in somewhere in Russia. This is in the 20s. And he wasn't feeling well. And he went to the doctor. And the doctor examined him. And he saw he has a condition where he says you've got, he basically says he's got 6 months to live. You're going back, you're talking about 80 years, in the 20s, where are we now? In the 80s, yeah? So about where are we now?
And also the 20s.
No, so about 100 years ago, yeah. Sorry. Okay. I'm mixing up with the Hebrew and the, a Kalponim said of Simcha, he says, I've got 6 months, okay, I can go to the Rebbe. They were in a different town. And the one who was leading the yeshiva was someone known as Chatzah Fegin. Chatzah is his name was Cheskel. But in Yiddish...
Georgian?
Pardon?
Is it Georgian? Chatzah?
No. Like you have... Russians also, they've got this way of taking the name. Yeshua becomes Heshke. So Yecheskel became Chatzah.
Wait, Yitzchok is Ichi?
Alexander?
Ichi.
Sasha?
Sasha?
Alexander.
No, yeah. So
It's really weird.
So Chatzah Fegin was a mental photographer to speak about him. So he was a very special person, very intelligent person. Chatzah says to you write to the Rebbe, I'm coming with you. So that he's the Menayel, he's running yeshiva, and his boy, I must tell you, before getting back to this story, there was another very colorful seer in Yitzchok known as Yisrael Nevler. I don't know if you know the name. Yisrael Nevler, he wanted to teach, explain what does it mean when a person takes too much mashke. So he got a goat, and he gave the goat a bit of vodka, and the goat he brought the goat into the zal.
Oh, yeah.
And,
sounds like camp.
Robert Goldberg told us this.
And as a result, he was dismissed from the yeshiva. He was suspended for 2 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
This is like a mishmir or like a buffer?
So
He's a buffer.
he was a bocher. He was suspended for 2 weeks, and so then he went to the local equivalent of Essen Bench or something, and he ate there at lunch and supper, and he said it's on the yeshiva's account. After 2 weeks, he comes back to the yeshiva, and meanwhile the yeshiva get a bill for his meals at the local kiosk. Of course, it wasn't as fancy as we have over here, whatever. So who was the Menayel? There was the Frierdiker Rebbe, was the Menayel. He calls him in, he says, "You're suspended from yeshiva, now you're going to send me a bill?" So I saved the yeshiva a packet of money. What do you mean you saved the yeshiva money? So he says, listen, if I wouldn't have eaten for 2 weeks, I would have died. Then you'd have to pay for the Chevra Kaddish. You have to pay for a plot, you have to pay for shroud. We get so much money, I saved the yeshiva money by going to the kiosk. So you can't argue with such a guy, so he got away with it. Perhaps he learned a Tanya Balper or something, but anyway, that was Yisrael Nevler. But no director of yeshiva is interested to have such a story on his hands. So Chatzah, he came to the Rebbe, Chatzah Fegin, he's got this boy, the doctor's given him 6 months. So he wants to, send him back to his parents. So, and when they came to, this wasn't in Lubavitch, this was already in Leningrad. So fast forwarding. This is so. Hashe
It must be in 1920.
in the 20s, yeah.
Yeah.
So then down.
No, it has to be
Yeah.
1920. Was there ever a shot?
No. So these
Oh,
two
the
stories.
Peter.
These are two stories. But the story with Simcha Gardetsky is in the 1920s.
With the Friedrich.
Friedrich,
Okay.
yeah. And so now, Chatsche and this Simcha go to Leningrad to the Rebbe. And Chatsche says, I'm going in first. Chatsche goes in first, and then Rebbe Simcha goes in afterwards. And the Rebbe says to him, Chatsche zog, tal du bist shemen die Tscheiches etepet mimen. Chatsche is saying that you're no longer relevant to Tepet Mimen, you're no longer eligible for Tepet Mimen. Ich sage aber nicht das. My view is not so. You may not be able to keep the strenuous schedule of Tepet Mimen, but you can stay with them. And then he says,
You can stay with them?
you can stay Tepet Mimen, but
Yeah.
we'll give you a lighter schedule.
Yeah.
And then the Rebbe says to him, I've got work for you. This is in the 20s. The poverty, the shortage of what to live on was terrible, and there was a need to raise money for yeshiva. So the Rebbe says, I've got a job for you, to go to Moscow, and to raise money for your Tirfet Mimim. This is in the 20s, there was still a little bit of business going on. And so he goes to Moscow, and there was a certain Rav, I'm going to use the name Rabbi Friedman. I don't remember what the name was. Rabbi Greenberg, whatever the name was. Let's say Greenberg. There was a Rabbi Greenberg who was not a Lubavitcher, but he had been a strong supporter of the Chabad, yeshiva, etc. And so he said, Simcha comes to town, and he speaks to some of the Lubavitcher Chevre, and he says he wants to go to get help from Rabbi Greenberg. So they tell him, Rabbi Greenberg, I'm sorry to tell you, is a lost case, because 2 weeks ago, one of the Lubavitcher Bochurim, really, because Rabbi Greenberg said something not so respectful about the Rebbe or something. And this Bocher gave him such a shower, and he really put him in place. He told him all the emes upon him. And Rabbi Greenberg was very, very offended. And he says, if that's what Lubavitch is all about, I'm not interested. And nothing to talk about. He was really, really turned off. And so they told him, Simcha, there's nothing to talk about. He was helpful for many, many years, but nothing to talk about. So Simcha didn't give up hope, and he, the elder Bocher, goes to Rabbi Greenberg's shul, and he sits there and he's learning. And people ask him, what are you doing here? So he says, I'm here for business, I have spare time. And he's sitting and learning for many hours in the shul, day in, day out. Sometimes he's listening to Rabbi Greenberg's shir, and sometimes he even adds a comment or asks a question, whatever. After 2-3 weeks, Rabbi Greenberg confronts him. He says, tell me the manners. You're a businessman or you're a yeshiva bocher? So he confessed, I'm a yeshiva bocher. And which yeshiva? So he said, Simchat Mimen. The guys, they're gangsters, they're hooligans. So he says, so Reb Simcha says, I'll tell you, most of the Bochurim there are very refined people, very nice people. Occasionally we need a hooligan. So instead of having to import a hooligan from outside, we have a few of our own hooligans. But most of the guys are Edele guys. And so, but that's how he, and he was wholly fine, okay. And what are you doing in Moscow? So he says, I'm coming to fundraise. And okay. And then he says, next thing is, he says to Rabbi Greenberg, I want to make a fundraise, I want to make a appeal in your shul. And Rabbi Greenberg was brought over back to the degree he agreed to make the appeal, to have the appeal in his shul. But then Reb Simcha goes further and he says, but actually I'm not a very good speaker. And it would be more effective if the Rav would make the appeal. So Rabbi Greenberg made the appeal for the Sochet Mimim, and so Reb Simcha managed to turn him around from being an enemy. And now he became a supporter, and actually he was very successful in this appeal, and he raised more money, Rabbi Greenberg's shul, than all the rest of Moscow together. He was like a tremendous success. After a couple of weeks of being in Moscow, he eventually makes his way back to Leningrad, and he reports to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe starts telling him, I want you to become a Rav in a certain area. You're from Russia? No?
I mean, if you go back far enough.
Okay.
He is.
No,
Okay.
I have my family here.
So the Rebbe says to him, I wanted you to become a Rav in Arbatskaya. There's an area in Moscow called Arbatskaya.
Where's Lev?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a guy in Moscow, actually.
Okay, so when Reb Simcha says to the Rebbe, like Moshe Rabbeinu kind of, I'm not the kind of guy cut out to be a Rav. Like, I really don't have that kind of character. And so he resisted, and the Rebbe said, okay, I'll let you
Rebbe Shop?
no, this is a critical Rebbe. I'll let you off on that. But for that which you took from an enemy, you made him into a friend, that I owe you one.
Wow.
So, yeah, talking about how you're asking, what does it mean, going back to the going through the smoke, yeah? Yes,
This is the same Bakr who couldn't like keep Seder and like.
yes.
Because he was.
And he told the story,
He was sick, right?
yes, and he told the story here about 40 years ago.
The engine lived for more than 6 months, right?
I'm telling you, I remember him, yeah.
He was here in Hatorah 40 years ago, so obviously it was more than 6 months.
Hatorah, he was here,
Sorry.
yeah.
No, it was guys 40 years ago, I'm saying.
Yeah.
So you're saying that more than 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was the one with the goat?
No, that's Stroll Devil.
That was in Lubavitch,
That
right?
was in the Bible, that was years earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just,
I just brought that in just to explain the significance of a blocker and not being
the Seder.
Yeah.
But pretty clear use his energy or whatever and put it in a great
Stroll
money.
Devil was a mashpia, right? He was a very effective.
That was from Simcha.
Both of them were.
They were both going on Simcha?
No. Stroll Devil became a mashpia. My father-in-law. Let's say he was a Malamed, and Stroll Devil was his Malamed.
Yeah.
I heard there's lots of stories about Stroll Devil.
But that was the one from Lubavitch? With the goats?
Yeah. I understand what it's about. Yeah.
And then who was
The other one, Simcha, was later on, and that was I believe in Leningrad.
Okay.
When the Rebbe was in Leningrad, where they were in the Yeshiva was another town. I don't know. Yeah. Chaim.
I'm a bracha.
Oh,
Rabbi, you said the Franker Odom one? Is that why you lived more than 6 months?
Whatever the words were, but the Rebbe felt very, very grateful for the fact that he was able to transform an enemy to become an you know,
Big brachos.
to undo the work of the hooligan. Yeah. Anyway, I'll share with you a Yechidus. When I was 12 years old, which is now just gone 50 years ago. So,
As in it's your birthday.
pardon?
As in it's your birthday.
Not today.
But this year.
This year was,
Oh.
it was, yeah. So Topshin Lamed Dalet was when I went to Yechidus the first time. I came with my father, Olav Shalom, and at the time, my father-in-law, who wasn't yet my father-in-law, was our mashpia for learning Chassidus. His name was Reb Nachman Sudak. He had shliach, and he learned with us. And he got into his head an idea to encourage the boys to ask the Rebbe permission to put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. Now, this is 1973, 1974. And until that time, it was not accepted that bar mitzvah boys put on Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. A bocher, when he turned 18, would possibly ask the Rebbe. Sometimes the Rebbe said yes, sometimes the Rebbe
When
said...
did the Rebbe say to put on your big guns?
This is I'm getting to that. This was later. So then, but he in the Sichas, just after the Frierdiker Rebbe passes away, so there's the yeshiva upstairs in some 70, and it looks like the Rebbe was taking off his tefillin, putting on his tefillin. But you know the Rebbe wore the 4 pairs of tefillin. And so in that time, you can see in the back of the Sichas base, the Rebbe says he doesn't know why we don't have the minute that boys should wear Rabbeinu Tam's from the bar mitzvah. And the Rebbe says kind of, if he would have the ability, he would introduce such a thing that they should wear a tefillin or Rabbeinu Tam's sort of the bar mitzvah. So my father-in-law at the time, he had now experience of the bar mitzvah class, so he wanted to exploit the opportunity to push us to ask that. He had a son, his eldest son is a bit older than me, so he started pushing us all to ask the Rebbe to put on Rabbeinu Tam's. So one by one, we would travel from London to New York and went into Yechidus before the bar mitzvah. And one by one they asked, and the Rebbe said yes. And then, so when I came the first time I saw the Rebbe was discussed the Topshin on the Dalet. I came the first time for bar mitzvah, and I was pestering my father, Rabbeinu Tam's. So I don't know when my father had written on the paper, but he did ask the Rebbe that I wanted to start wearing Rabbeinu Tam's. So the Rebbe said to my father, does any of you speak Yiddish?
Any? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll say first in Yiddish and then in English. Ik ben met hem zich ondernemen, niet zo massief daar zijn. Is toch nooit zijn in nood. En de eten te en ik mag zo als zo zeggen toch niet. En mag zo als zo zeggen niet. Is toch nooit zijn in nood. En de eten te doen is er eins ook kunnen zien. Zij zo schmaar voor je mooi, zij zo wij daar bij te jagen. So in English, if he will commit himself not to have foreign thoughts, about forbidden thought is out of the question, but even optional, arbitrary thoughts. And it's only 10 minutes. And the advice, the solution would be to look in the Siddur when you say that, when he says the Shema v'hoya shemoya v'yadaber v'hoya kiyaviyah. Then the Rebbe asked my father, does he have his own tefillin yet? Or is it in Rabbeinu Tam's? So my father said that no, so the Rebbe said they should wait till he has his own tefillin. This is in Topshin Lamed Dalet, winter of 1973. Alright, So I got home and we ordered a pair of film and it took time. Eventually I started wearing this film. This is, as I say, this is Tafshin Lamed Dalet, Tafshin Lamed Vei, Tafshin Lamed Vov. I spent it here in Bernois, in the Yeshiva in Bernois. And Purim, Tafshin Lamed Vov, the Rebbe comes out. By then many more boys had been asking the Rebbe about Rebbeinu Tam. It became a more popular thing. And that time the Rebbe says that it's now appropriate that every bar mitzvah boy should start wearing Rebbeinu Tam's tefillin, and there's no need to ask individually. If you have your own tefillin, you can start wearing Rebbeinu Tam's tefillin. So it was like, you can see here, it was like what you say, Seros Del Tata, there was an interest. And okay. So then, now everyone's now wearing Rebbeinu Tam's, yeah? But I'm stuck with with certain conditions. I have to be careful. So now, at the end of I want to tell you a very, very important piece of information. I came to Yeshiva in Bernois, in France. I came Elul. Tafshin Lamed Tafshin Lamed Vov was there, and a few weeks into Cheshvan, a few weeks after Yom Tov, we were told that the Rebbe Zerim has sent a message to reimburse every boy who came for Tishrei, to reimburse half the ticket. And so we traveled from Bernois to Paris, to the office of the other Rabbi Raskin, and he gave me a reimbursement of 50% of whatever my ticket cost.
The Rebbe paid for it?
Yes.
Wow.
Right. And now that is indeed a wow.
That was a one-time thing?
No, it wasn't. It went on for many years.
I never knew that.
Right, and I find that such a powerful fact, because
Half of them.
I hope I never heard that before.
Ticket from
from Europe or from Eretz Yisrael,
It probably wasn't just Brunois, right?
It wasn't just
It's an incentive for a Tisha.
For all the Bahrain.
and it was for girls also, and it was. You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. It was the Rebbe spent on reimbursing people. Obviously, what did I do with the money? I put it away to be able to come the next time. And the Rebbe invested thousands of dollars, many thousands of dollars, for young people to encourage them to come back again for a Tishrei.
Wow.
And I think that's a very powerful fact. That the Rebbe invested in young people. He could have done other things. He could have built yeshivas. He could have, I don't know what he could have done with it, but he invested it that the youth should come again and again. So all right, so that's the next part of the story. So I got my 50% reimbursement at the beginning of Tafshin Lamed Vov. So of course for Tafshin Lamed Zayin, I'm halfway there already. So I buy a ticket again to come to the Rebbe. You know, the rest you can beg, borrow, or whatever, or steal. And I come for Tishrei, for Tafshin Lamed Zayin. And then comes, so I went to Yichudis now, this was probably the third time. I went to Lamed Vov, and basically my piece of paper, I asked for a brocha, and also we had to be able to go into Yichudis, you had to officially come to the Rebbe, you have to have permission from the Mashpia. So Reb Nissen was the Mashpia in Bernois, and he gives a hard time. You have to memorize Perek Mem Aleph of Tayyib al Peh, Perek Mem Beis, Perek Chav Hei.
The whole Memorah for the first part?
No. It was
Sounds like
long.
this never know.
Yes. And listen, I tried my best, as they say. And I wasn't managing, and I got kind of almost, I got on my knees to Reb Nissen and said, I don't have the mental capacity to memorize so much. And eventually gave me a bit of paper. Now I told this story over, I was in Paris a few months ago, and someone told me that he reminded him of his story. He was a French boy, Balcheva, and he was a few years older than me, but he was in yeshiva together with me. And he says that he also couldn't handle at all the Renaissance things. And he didn't really pay much attention. And he went off, and just before he went to the train station to go to the airport, he asked for permission, can I have a piece of paper? He said, or whatever. You'll go to New York, you'll see Rabbi Yosef, the Rosh Hashiva, you'll ask Rabbi Yosef for
Rabbi Yosef Goldberg.
yeah, so
Like
Yankel's, yeah. So he was a Rosh Hashiva. He was here for Tishri. So, okay. So this is Eli Yozon, his name is. So Eli Yozon comes to New York, and at the end of Tishri, and he remembers, hey, before I go into Yechidus, I need to get this piece of paper. So he looks around for Rabbi Yosef, and okay, well, here's paper. But I need to have an envelope. No, I need to have paper and envelope. So he finds a piece of paper, but he can't find an envelope. So he's going around 770, up and down the aisle, he can't find an envelope. And then, so he comes back to the base and says, in this country we don't have envelopes. They said, without the envelope I can't give you the paper. He can't go into Yechidus without an envelope, without the paper. Which eventually he went into the office in Yeshiva, just opposite the Mazal, the small office. And Dr. Raskin had the office there.
Your uncle.
Huh?
Your uncle.
Yeah. And on the notice board, there was like an envelope from Mitzrayim. They had like with a logo, etc. Envelope. Because you looked around in the drawer, there was no envelope. There was one envelope on the wall, stuck with a pin. Can I have that envelope? So okay, take it. So he takes the envelope, and he's got Mitzvah, Neshik, whatever it was at the time. And finally he comes to Yosef, he goes into Yechidus, and the Rebbe starts looking at this envelope. The Rebbe hadn't seen the envelope, and the Rebbe spent a long time looking at the envelope with all the logos. So and then he opened his head, or whatever. So he says he gave the Rebbe Nachas, he brought this envelope. But, so coming back to my story, so I come into the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would sit by Yechidus, with his hat like this through, slightly looking down, reads my settle. First he opens reminiscence settle, he opens an envelope, he opens the envelope, not that one, my envelope, which reminiscence had given me. He opens it up and he reads what's written there. Probably it said that this guy needs extra attention. And then he reads, the Rebbe reads my and settle. And the Rebbe says, by the way, the Rebbe would often sit there with a pencil. And as he's reading, he would make a mark on the side as he's reading your paper. And then he would respond. He gave a bracha. I noticed that a couple of times I was in Yechidus, I'd ask my parents and my teachers should get nachas from me, and the brachas were that your parents should get nachas from you. So I gave my teachers a hard time. But then the Rebbe then comes to says the following. First, give me a bracha. And then he says, okay, I'll say in Yiddish, then back into English. But again, those was the flex when to film that I So I had written my paper. I'd written, I'm being a polite Englishman. So I wrote an apology. I made a deal with the Rebbe, not to have foreign thought. But I'm not keeping my deal. So I don't know why I asked this. I don't know what I was asking. I was apologizing. And perhaps I was hoping I would get a pinch on the cheek and say, "You're a cute kid. You're okay. Everyone's got it for free. You're okay." But I don't know what was going on in my mind. I don't remember. But anyway, but the Rebbe comes to that piece, and he says the following: "Wanneer gehe das was geflext wenn te veel onder binnen taan. Wens we daar reinvallen machshava zora, zoals de hebben hem kol abisole, en dat wordt vertreiben de machshava zora." In reference, that's what you're asking about the Orientalist film, where if a foreign thought will fall into your mind, you should raise your voice somewhat, and that will help in driving away the foreign thought. So I wasn't let off the hook. I was just given a new piece of guidance that if you are looking at the siddur and you are still getting distracted, so then you intensify your attention in the siddur. That was the message which I got there. I'll tell you one more story, because the hour is getting late. But so many years later, By the way, this, I don't know whether you're familiar, about 20 years ago I published a sefer, a study on the Siddur. And
It's European.
yeah.
In English?
It's English.
No, no, no. It's not worth translating in English. It's too technical. But I see that as a fulfillment. They never told me I'm right to cook in a siddur, so I'm cooking a siddur. So and that's a whole life journey. But let's come back.
What's the sefer about?
It's a study on the Alter Rebbe.
Like the history, the thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Alter Rebbe obviously worked on it, and there's a choice of which nusach he chose, etc., etc. And there's lots of stuff. And why do we say this? Why don't we say that? And,
Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah. So I was kind of somehow drawn into that, and yeah. So coming back, so I was. This is going back about Tafshin Nun Zayin. Where are we now? Tafshin Nun Zayin. Huh?
It's a little over
There you go.
25 years.
Yeah, well, yeah. So this is a couple of years after Gimel Tammuz, and I get a call from Rabbi Brennan. If you know who that is.
Levi Brennan?
Levi Brennan, yeah. They're making Kinnis HaShluchos, and they need a rabbi on the panel. So it looks like there's a shortage of rabbis in the United States, so we were prepared to pay my ticket to come across to be one of the panelists. So,
Talking about this year? Or you don't know the
Tafshin Nun Zayin. Okay. So Tafshin Nun Zayin. So okay, fine, sure, I'm coming, no problem. So then, but the sessions are for Thursday, Friday, Sunday, but Shabbos, and I'm a free bird. So Shabbos, I spent Shabbos at the Oyel. Now, my father-in-law was very passionate about learning a maimer. Nowadays it's not practical perhaps, but to learn a maimer with the Bala Maimer, stand at the Oyel and learn a maimer with the Rebbe. That was, he had this passion about this.
Wow.
So, okay, so I'm here for this Shabbos, not this Shabbos, the Shabbos Mishpatim, which is Shabbos, this week is Shabbos Shkolim, yeah?
Yes, sir.
But it's going to be Shabbos
I don't know, Shabbos
Shkolim.
Mavarchim Moderation.
Is it going to be Shabbos Shkolim?
No, next week
No,
is Rosh Chodesh.
Oh, so Shabbos Rosh
It's
Chodesh,
just-
that's it.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but that year it was Shabbos Shkolim, Shabbos Mishpatim, Shabbos Shkolim. And that was the Shabbos close to,
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know what that's got to do with it. Whatever, doesn't matter.
Either.
Well, you're right. This is the Michal the Iber Yos is another whole month. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So I'm at the Oil, and I before Shabbos, I write the settle to the Rebbe, and I'm going to tell you a personal thing, and to not get into too much detail. But I was working in the department of the Boisters in London, and there was a major
Clash.
misunderstanding between my father-in-law, who was the head shliach, and the faculty. And I was one of the faculty. So I'm like, in English we have an expression, piggy in the middle. So I'm part of the faculty, and then at home, and I'm stuck in the middle. So I was finding that stressful, to put it mildly. And I wrote myself to the Rebbe, and at the end I write always in Hebrew, Lashon HaKodesh, but this line I wrote in Yiddish. I feel as der reist dahin and der reist daher. That this one is pulling me in one direction, this one's pulling me the other direction. And I asked for bracha. So then, Friday night, you can see that what I'm going to tell you is printed. We went to a Maimer on Pashas Shkolim. Now the idea of half shekel, there is the idea of the half shekel that when Moshe Rabbeinu is told to make trumpets, so the word for trumpets in Lashon HaKodesh is chatzetzes. And then the Mizritche Magid takes the word chatzetzes and it says chatzetzes is chatzoi tzuris, two halves of an image. Okay. So then in the Maimer he explains what is the two halves of an image. So we know when Adam Rishon was created, so we have the famous idea that Adam and Chava were two bodies kind of connected back to back. There's one wants this idea, yeah? Familiar? You've heard this idea before? No? That Adam and Rishon originally, when they created, there was only one person, and it was like two faces, back to back. That's one way of how the Gemara says. The state that Adam and Chava were like back to back, stuck to one another, two faces to one body, so to speak. Whole discussion in the Gemara, which says which one. When I wanted to go somewhere, which one? Yeah. It's a place, a couple of places in Mark Subas, Gemara Erevin, perhaps a third place in Baruch, whatever. So we have this idea of Hatorah. Now I'm checking how the thread of the mind, because it's talking about shok shkolim. You have a half a shekel, and there's the other half a shekel. You think you're only a half. So he comes into this idea of two halves being connected, back to back. Then he explains in the Avodah, what is the union of Ocher, Vaked, and Sartoni in Avodah? What's the idea of connected back to back in Avodah? He says, sometimes a person is just in a mindset, oh, there I stay in, there I stay here. He feels that he's pulled in opposite directions. This is what he says in the Maimer. So and then those words are in Yiddish. The Maimer is in Hebrew, but those words, Maimer is the same word which I had written, almost word for word, which I had written on Friday just before I went in, that I feel being tugged in opposite directions. Shabbos morning, I'm standing at the oil, learning the Maimer, boom. Those words. Sometimes you feel that this one is tugging you in one direction, sometimes when someone's pulling the other direction. And then what happened? Then they go a little bit further in the Maimer. He says, what happened after the Rishon was back to back? Then the Kadosh Baruch Hu puts him to sleep, deep sleep, and then there is the separation. Yeah. Now in Kabbalah language, that separation has got a term. It's called nesira. Nesira means, in English, would mean sawing apart. If the word for a saw in Hebrew is masor, so it's a saw apart. That's significant. That the connotation is that it's a painful procedure. That's why I use the word of a saw. And so there is the Inyan HaNesira. So what is the Inyan HaNesira in Avodah? As the Maimer says, afterwards, next stage was Nesira, was the Inyan of Nesira in Avodah. The Avodah, he says, Hatorah v'nei learn, Yegia b'Torah. So I had here a very clear, to myself at least, a very clear response. You're asking, and this one's pulling you one direction, this one's pulling you down the other direction. Your answer is, I told you, look at the Siddur, yeah? Your idea is that you should focus, intensify your learning Torah, and that's your solution. They'll deal with it. but that's not your problem. Your problem is to focus on your Avodah. That's the way I went away with it. So I just was asking, how do you go through the cloud of smoke without getting dirty? So I just see all of these messages which I've gotten along the way. You focus on your Avodah, and you have to engage in Elam Hazin. But don't get dirty. Be idle. That's the story I told you about Reb Simcha. That to be not to get drawn. In fact, there are hooligans out there. Okay, if you need them, you call them in. But otherwise, yourself, you do your idle. I don't know how you say idle. Refined. Kiddush Hashem. Your relationships are Kiddush Hashem. And that's the way. I want to just perhaps tell you one last thought. I see the time is moving. Very beautiful thought. I'm sure you're familiar with the pasuk Eben Moasu Havoinim Hoysel Rosh Bina. The stone which was despised by the builders became the cornerstone. Right. Originally from Tillim. Okay. I'm not even sure. Perhaps it was first Hal, then put into Tillim. I'm not sure. At any rate, so there is a Medrash source which says the following: that when the stones were being quarried for the building of the Beis Hamikdash. So as they were carving these stones out of the mountain, there was a particular stone which looked totally weird. And so the quarriers, the builders said that's a useless piece of material, and they discarded it. When it came to the actual building of the Beis Hamikdash, and there was a certain very challenging situation. You may know that the walls, I'm just adding a bit of information, when they built the Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash, right, they weren't straight vertical walls, they were slightly at an angle. That's how the Gemara says. You're learning Bava Basra this year?
Yeah.
Does it not come up here about the building? It talks about the
Yes,
separation,
the
about the wall between. But elsewhere, the Gemara talks about how the walls were slightly at an angle, and therefore it talks about the shadow of the building. At the midday, you didn't immediately have a shadow till a half an hour after midday. That's how the idea of mincha can only be a half an hour after midday, because the walls weren't mamish vertical; they were slightly diagonal, and as a result, okay. So I'm just adding why it could be at a cornerstone. It could have been quite a challenging engineering piece, and so they didn't have a suitable piece of stone to make that cornerstone. And so then one of the builders realized, oops, in the quarry there was that stone which we rejected, and it turned out that that stone was actually the perfect piece for the puzzle. It connected and it solved the problem. So that's the Eben Moasu Haboinim, the stone which was despised by the builders. Hoysel Reish Pino becomes the cornerstone, the head cornerstone. What I find so beautiful about this message is that sometimes we may be self-judgmental, sometimes judgmental to others, but sometimes we think, I don't have that quality, someone is better. And this quality, whether it's charisma, intelligence, this, that, I've got certain, I could have, that one, I've got certain disadvantages. I'm not as good as this one, not as good as that one. And so I feel perhaps inadequate. And it may be actually that in a certain situation, this lack of super intelligence, or lack of charisma, or may actually be just the right balance in a particular situation. Don't feel, because I don't have those qualities, therefore I am a failure. On the contrary, there may be this stone which at a first glance you say this stone is of no good use, and it may actually be that your level of frumkeit, your level of approachability, your level of may actually be the perfect, and it is. This is true for every one of us. Hashem has got a slot where He needs each one of us. Otherwise, He wouldn't have created us. So, not to be frustrated by my inabilities, ineptness, whatever it may be. Actually, Hashem gave me a certain balance of qualities, because He's given me a certain challenge, which only I can carry out that challenge. So I think that's a very beautiful thought. I'm going to leave that with you.
My friend wanted me to ask you, do you know Shalom Raskin from Montreal? He told me to ask you if you know.
Shalom Raskin. Ben? Is he Hirschel's son?
I don't know his father's name. I know his grandfather was in Morocco.
That I can tell you, there's two brothers who live in Montreal, Herschel and Mandel. One is in Joseph Luke, and one is in
That's all I know. I don't know his father's name.
So where do you work? All the Boucher Raskins are Wamish brothers.
I know, but he told me to ask you. I don't know why.
Yeah, so he'd be my cousin's son.
So you're Mr. Nemenov married Raskin.
Mr. Nemenov married my Zayda's cousin. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Masha, her name was.
Masha Rivka, yeah.
I didn't know the name of Masha Rivka.
Yeah, my sister's name.
What's your name?
Meir Shimon Moskowitz.
You are Meir Shimon Ben?
Ben, the Rebbe's name.
Wait a minute. So you're, right. Okay, so you got two brothers who are married into London families.
Yeah.
Okay. I see your brother very often.
Yes.
So yes, I didn't know her name was Masha Rivka. I used to go to the house from time to time when I was in Brnois. And then, so then, because Moshe Raskin was paralyzed in his later years. He used to sit there with a sefer, but he was paralyzed, and so his brother, May Chaimitzin, took care of the family. And so he married off his daughter.
Oh.
And so Moshe, that's your Zeno, elder Zeno.
Moshe Raskin?
No, Moshe
Nemanah? Moshe.
Zeno. Yeah, so he was named after this Moshe.
Cool. Is it true they used to walk on the Brnois and check if the yarmulkes were on people's heads when they were sleeping? I don't know.
I heard they used to snoop around in the bedrooms, to check them out, yeah. So, yeah. It was like you went into Brnois, it was like going to a time machine. You're like,
That's what I've heard. That's why I'm asking.
yeah,
I heard Brnois like
yeah, it was like,
there's Rabbi Gover's father and it's Nemanov.
yeah.
So you came again this year for the kiddo?
Who?
You.
Did I come for the kinnus? Which kinnus? The ladies or the men?
You said when Levi Brennan called you.
No, this year I came, I made a shit of my son, my daughter became a Kali yesterday.
Oh,
Mazel.
So that's
oh,
my...
Gordon also, but made a shidduch yesterday.
Right,
A different one.
yeah.
Alright.
So you get you come here.
Yeah,
Malta.
That's exciting.
okay. Good night, also.
No.
Welcome.
Bye.
What's going on, Sam?
I like the Reagan.